Hello. Today I'm talking with Katrina Clokie. We talked about the passing of our parents and doing the thing that is hard.
I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello everyone, and hello with me I have Katrina Clokie. Is that how I should pronounce your name?
Yes, it sure is.
Wow. Okay. I prefer to always ask it on camera, not before, because again I wanted to be as natural as possible, and that's always some things when the first time then people meet, or actually not just the first time, sometimes after a while I need to re-ask because yeah, okay, with the people that we don't see all the time, with people around the world, I
Yeah.
really I really want to pronounce the names correctly, but it's not always easy. That's the thing. And around the world, I also want to show a little bit. I'm here in Ghent, in Belgium, and we're going to all around the world because we're actually moving to what was it again? To Wellington. So that's really and for me it's 10 o'clock in the evening. What's the time on your side?
So it's 8 a.m. tomorrow from your
Yes,
perspective. So it's
you're
Friday morning here.
yes, you're in the future, right? I'm talking to
Yes, yeah.
someone from the future. I always like it to see it like that. And Katrina, for the few people that don't know you, how do you want to introduce yourself? What do you want people to know before we jump into the questions?
Hey, I'm Katrina. I've just recently started my own business doing coaching and training for leaders who work in product or engineering. A lot of people know me from my book, which was a practical guide to testing in DevOps. I published that a few years ago in 2017. I have been an active conference speaker around the world for a few years. I used to write a blog about testing. I stopped doing that a few years ago. And yeah, I've just kind of been part of the tech community internationally for a little while. And it's great to have opportunities like this to talk to people and, share opinions and figure out what's happening in the wider world. Because as you just saw, New Zealand is far away from pretty much everywhere.
That is indeed something that is true. Well, it feels how would I say it? It feels far away from me, and probably for you it's the same. It feels far away from big parts of the world.
Yeah, I
And
mean, the closest place really is Australia, and that's still a 4-hour flight. So, and
wow,
we're
I had
pretty
no idea
isolated.
that was so far.
Yeah.
For me, it's like okay, your neighbors, basically. Well, you are neighbors, but
I mean,
still.
they are our neighbor, but they're still quite far away.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, I had no idea. Okay, that's
Yeah.
yeah. For that especially coming from Belgium, that's really interesting because in Belgium, anywhere we are in Belgium, I think in less than a 2 hour drive we can visit all our neighbors. So
Yeah.
it's really the opposite. And for you, it's already 4 hour plane. So that's yeah a
Yes.
lot harder than yeah for us. Okay,
Yeah.
planes on top, then you have to check in and everything. So that makes things even worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, for us, it's just a car drive to our neighbors. So that feels so completely different.
Yeah.
That is true. And actually, while you were talking, I thought you mentioned the book, but you didn't show the book or you didn't show the name. So this is the book that you were talking about, the Practical Guide to Testing in
Yes,
DevOps.
correct. So it's on LeanPub. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't ever publish a physical copy, but I continue to get kind of very small but steady stream of royalties coming through from the book. So I know that people are still discovering it and reading it and finding it useful, which is really cool and quite
Mm-hmm.
surprising to me. Like, I originally wrote it for a team of testers that I was working with at the time, and it's really cool that it continues to be relevant for people.
Yeah, and relevant. When I prepared for today, I saw you were near 10,000 readers on Leanpub, so that's not just a
Yeah.
small thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's amazing. Now Leanpub, I love the platform. It's really a good thing for publishing in IT, because we can keep editing and keep changing things. And I do think, well, yeah, it was wonderful also to see when you publish it. Okay, it's just like with everybody on Leanpub. Is there is a small error, people send you something up. In a way, 10 minutes later, you can have an update
It's fixed up.
to
Yeah.
yeah. So it's very nice. But it's one of the books on Leanpub that I think is really was selling really well back in. And it's what is it? It's already 5 years old or something like
Is
that,
that
or
8 years?
8. Wow. Okay. Wow. It's yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
the COVID times really messed up people's
Yeah.
perspective of
Exactly.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do remember the moment that it came out. So that was. I'm not sure if it's the first moment that you came onto my radar, but it's definitely something that was recommended to me by a couple of people. I really loved it, and yeah, I'm both helping out in the DevOps community. I'm yeah, testing for me is a really important part. So I was really happy to see such a book being published, and the numbers prove that I'm not the only one who's interested in this. So
Yeah.
really happy to see that. So that brings us already a little bit on where you are, who you are, and yeah, and already amazed me. Like, well, the numbers and the book I knew, but that it's a 4-hour flight, I had no idea. It's really a part of the world that is on my radar to once visit, but I haven't visited. And yeah, I was kind of thinking like, okay, these visiting both countries at the same time, but already now I'm like, okay, that would be a different kind of trip probably.
I mean,
Maybe,
it's
yeah.
20 hours to get from Belgium
Mhm.
down here, so you may as well do both while you're
Yeah,
here.
I would still do
Yeah.
both, but it won't be like, okay, in a day I'll visit one and that. No, it's
Yeah,
definitely
no.
the, with such a long flight. This is definitely something to say like, okay, I will take 3-4 weeks to visit the country, and to because it's yeah, it's the whole different kind of thing, and probably will take me at least a week to adjust to the time differences,
Yeah.
because it's yeah, all of that. But I'm really happy that you're here, and actually, because of everything that we can do digitally, it's possible to find some times to do it, which is well, before all these digital tools would be almost impossible. Then one of us would have to take a flight for so long. And then
Yes.
be completely jet lagged into having this conversation. While now, both of us, after this conversation, we can go back to our families or friends or whatever we want to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's thing. So let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Yeah. So I have a variety of answers to this, but I thought I'm going to give you the honest and deep one.
Wow.
Um, I lost both my parents they were quite young. So
Mm-hmm.
when I had just turned 30, my dad passed away in an accident. He was 61. And
Wow.
about 5 years ago, my mum passed. She was 63, and she had cancer. And that, especially my dad's death, but that has definitely influenced who I am, because it made me realize that you sort of live with an expectation of your lifespan being, 80s. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
have time. And neither of them made it to their retirement. So in New Zealand, retirement age is 65. I'm not sure if that's
Mm-hmm.
consistent for Europe, but
It's
they,
yeah, it's around that. It's actually getting later these days.
yes, yeah.
So yeah, so but
And that's
65.
a trend I find really a little upsetting, to be honest, because people keep pushing, they make assumptions about how long they'll have, and you kind of keep pushing
Mhm.
things. So, um, yeah, my blogging, my conference speaking, writing the book, all of those things happened after my dad had passed away. And for me, there was a really big influence from that event where I thought, I don't have as much time as I think I do. And if I want to do something or achieve something or have an outcome from my life, I should be doing that now, because there's no guarantee that the tomorrow you're kind of betting on is going to come. Um, yeah, and so that's also fed into where I am now. So I finished full-time employment at the end of February and decided to launch my own business and be self-employed. And that has been kind of a big change for me. Like, I have been in full-time employment 20 years, but it's also been a change that has really shifted the balance in my life and given me a lot more time to do the things that I value outside of work, which I think, again, I'm like, you can't bet on having a retirement in your 60s and 70s. So how can you bring all your opportunities as early as possible and kind of take advantage of things when you're young and when you're able and while you can? Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that yeah, definitely this is something to that people think about. I had a friend who I wouldn't call it a contest, but she walked 100 kilometers last weekend
Yeah.
at yes, she's more or less my age, so 50, around 50. And one of the things she said me afterwards this week was like, yeah, I told her, like, you lived the full life, like, okay, working really hard, but also enjoying really hard. And it was also related to having lost her dad, like, I don't know, more than 10 years ago already, I think. And
Yeah.
knowing that, yes, for him, it was also like, I will have time to do this and that and to enjoy life when I'm retired. And yeah, never had really much of that. And I say 10 years, but it's more than 20 years ago, I think. And so that's, yeah, indeed, thinking about
Yeah.
that makes you really think, like, okay, yeah, I can imagine that has a huge impact on when you say
I
my.
think it's common. I think it's quite common for people who experience the loss of a parent relatively early, and it just brings clarity about your own decision making. Like, you know, if if you shorten your expectation of how long you have left, what would change? And I like to live in a way that the answer is nothing, or as close to possible as nothing, which definitely wasn't true for me when, like, prior to this, I thought, "Oh, I've got ages. Like, what would I want to do before I die? Oh, this and this and this and this." And it sounds quite morbid, but now I think, if I had an accident today, I would go without regret, because you live in a way that, you've done the things, you've acted on the things you wanted to do, which I think is a good way to live.
Yeah, I recognize that the yeah, the thing, like, if I would die today, I think it's also like I had a happy life. Of course, I hope that I can
Yeah.
live 30, 40, probably not 50 years. That would be too old for me. But well, depending again on health, because
Well, they say
I
100 now is the new age we're going to get to, right?
well, for me, that depends really on the health. I have some family members that are around 90 and really struggle with health, and then I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I want to live longer. But as long, I also have family members that are 90 and that are really in extremely condition, that I sometimes think, is am I as good, as healthy as they are? So
Yeah.
again, that really depends. But like you say, if I would die, I think nobody should say that, okay, regretting that, I want to do other things. I'm like, I'm really happy in the work I'm doing. I love the things like doing this, and so I can understand that that's the kind of thing that's, yeah, okay.
I mean, you mentioned earlier that you have a conscious habit around this podcast of
Mhm.
reflecting annually and like, will I continue this, yes or no? And I feel like that kind of habit is part of what is baked into, that's kind of how I've been influenced as well. Like,
Mm.
do I want to continue to spend my time in this way? Is this bringing me joy? What else do I want to be doing? Like all of those questions, I like to kind of poll myself regularly. Yeah.
Yeah, is this giving me energy? Is it taking me energy? Is this I
Yeah,
do this
exactly.
for clients, I do this for, well, maybe friends less, but I think years ago I know that there were some friends that I noticed at some point, like, hey, I'm spending all the energy and I don't have the feeling that they're spending energy. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe I don't want to keep pulling and working on that friendship. And
Hmm.
if they start spending energy, then probably it will continue working, and that worked for at least one or two. And for others, I noticed, like, okay, that goes away, and then it's like, that's fine because it's actually costing me less energy. And if I run into
Yes.
them, fine, I'll probably have a good time, but I won't be spending a lot of energy recontacting and trying to get to meet or whatever, because yeah, then it becomes a burden, I think.
Yeah.
I kind of did this, I would say, naturally, without, now I can understand and talk about the process. I think back 20, 30 years ago, I didn't really understand the process of why I was doing that, but yeah, it's kind of, it flew in, and that I recognize with what you're saying. And I want to go a little bit deeper, if you want to share, because of course this is can be depending on how it feels. But you talked about losing your father in an accident. So when I hear this, I hear very sudden. Yeah? So that's like,
Yes.
yeah, you talk to that person and you think everything's fine, and then the next day you get some kind of message like something happened. Was that traumatic for you in
Oh,
that?
absolutely. I was um I was teaching a graduate intake in my job
Mhm.
at the time, and I think I'd done the first day, and we were driving home, my husband and I got a phone call. We left to drive up to where my parents were based, and we didn't get there. Like, he passed before we got to their city,
Oh.
and I missed a week of that program, and then I came back and did the rest of it, and probably shouldn't have. I was very, like, grieving, and I remember, teaching some of that and thinking like, "Oh, what's the point of this?" All this other stuff is going on.
Hmm.
But yes, it was very sudden, and I think trauma is probably the right word, but when you framed the question as influenced you and who you are, like, it had a massive influence on how I've lived since then. Yeah.
And when you say you continued then to teach at the moment that you, while teaching, you thought, what am I doing it? Is this
Yeah.
also influencing you today in decisions, like, would you now not do it or stop earlier, or how does that influence you?
So I mean, it's an interesting question. So grief is different for different people, right? But
Hmm.
some wise advice I had when it first happened was that it's non-linear. Like, with a lot of emotion, you sort of feel it and then it goes away. With grief, it kind of comes in waves, and for a long time, like, something can catch you out and suddenly you're sort of back there. Um, and so I think I really enjoy teaching. Like, it's still part of what I do now.
Hmm.
The thing that was making me question, should I be doing this now, was the grief aspect. And, like, in New Zealand, you get 3 days of bereavement leave, so it's not a long time. And I
For
had an
parents
employer,
or in general?
yeah, anyone. Actually, I think it's parents and grandparents is the kind of legislation.
Hmm.
And then my employer was very flexible. I could have used my holiday leave, like my annual leave, but I decided to go back to work. And I think for me, was probably a little bit soon. Like I could have taken a bit more time. So it wasn't so much, why am I doing this activity? It was more about, why am I here?
That's a very annoying moment to have a break, but okay. So you were talking, you could
I
have
finished my
taken,
sentence. I don't know that it will have recorded the
so you said I could have taken some more time, and I think then it
yes.
froze.
So it wasn't about, should I be teaching this or not? It was more about, should I be here or not? Like
Exactly.
should I have spent some more time? Yeah.
And you talk about that grief comes and goes. Is that now, because it's a while ago? Is that still coming, or is that coming as deep? I don't know. If you share to
I
care
don't
to
know.
share. Huh?
So I think it still comes, but differently. Like it's not as raw. You have more time. Like I couldn't have had this conversation like 10 years ago. There's no way. And I think it's still, there are times when something happens and you want to tell them something and they're not there. Like it's still hard, but there's enough distance from it having happened that you can, I guess, there's more emotional resilience to it. So maybe if I was visualizing it in the beginning, the waves are very big, and now they're still there, but there's less flux. Like you can feel it, but it's much more contained and manageable. Yeah.
I can imagine that is different. And so you talked about losing both of your parents rather quickly, one after the other. Your father was very abrupt, completely unannounced, if I would say it, because of the
hmm
accident. You said your mother had cancer. Does that mean that you had more time to adjust for that and
Yeah,
prepare?
absolutely. Yeah. So, um, they weren't close together, but they were in the same decade. So I was in
Ah,
my
right.
30s for both. Um, my mum, yes, she had a diagnosis and they gave her 5 years and she lasted 4.5. So they were pretty accurate in their prognosis. But
Wow.
that shifted, um, like what I was just talking about, right? Like how would you live if you knew you had a deadline? That certainly shifted some of her thinking in her final years. She did a lot of traveling, she did a lot of volunteering, she spent a lot of time with family. Like she sort of had a deadline almost, and um, like there's pros and cons to that way of going as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine that also um, every time, or especially maybe in the beginning, that sentence is said like, okay, there is 5 years. That I can imagine that every time that you see your mother at that moment, you really literally think like, okay, this could be the last day, and do I still and then maybe after a couple of years it's like, okay, we're getting closer, but we don't know. That gives other kind of anxiety, I can think.
Yeah, and because she was obviously going through treatment, so when she was diagnosed, she had a treatment, and then she was in remission. She came to Europe with me when I was speaking at a conference, and we did a little bit of traveling. So I think that was just after my book had been published, and I spoke at Agile Testing Days in Potsdam, and we then traveled around. And she'd never been to Europe. She'd never traveled to a country where English wasn't the first language. And so, um, yeah, she really enjoyed that trip and then ended up going back to Europe later on with some friends. But um, that kind of experience was something I don't think would have happened if she hadn't known what was coming. Yeah.
And do you have the feeling that the extra 4.5 years that it helped you to say goodbye in that way, or
Um, I think it's just different. Like, I certainly felt more prepared, obviously, than with my father. But my sister found both equally hard for different reasons. So I think it's
yeah,
not,
yeah,
yeah. And I've talked about this with my husband. It's not like one is better than the other or
yeah, of
easier
course not. Yeah.
necessarily. It's just different. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, it's well, I haven't lost either of my parents, neither my parents-in-law, and so I have totally no idea. At the same time, they're both all four are getting older, and yeah, we just know that maybe 5 more years, but definitely probably not 10 years. Well, if we're lucky, 10 years
Yeah.
for to having all four, and so yeah, the more I hear stories about that, the more I think about that. Like, okay, yeah, every time there is something happening, like yeah, falling and breaking, I don't know, a hip or breaking a leg or whatever. It's every time, yeah, something serious. Yeah, if you fall in your 20s, like okay, it's annoying at worst, I would say. You can't go to
Yeah.
work or you can't do whatever you plan to do, but basically you're still rather fit to do whatever. But once you're past 60 or longer, then every small little thing becomes really something that could end up in weeks of hospital or whatever. And so yeah,
Yeah.
I think about a lot of that. And yeah, and when you say indeed, my mother had cancer at some point, but she was lucky in a way that they caught very early on, so that was
Hmm.
possible to do. But I do remember that every time there was chemotherapy or something similar, yeah, basically you see a wreck, you don't see, well, you see a shim of the person or a very small version of that person, and you think about, wow, okay, it could be finished any moment.
Yeah.
And that brings a lot of, I don't know if it's anxiety, but it's a lot of emotions, at least, in these kind of things. So yeah, I think it's, well, it's not good, but it's in a way it's good that when you now look back, that you've learned something. Um, so
Yeah.
that's a good thing to do in these kind of things. And so let's move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, do you have any idea what would have become of you?
Yeah, I love the framing of this. What would have become of you? Sounds like. So in high school, my focus was commerce. I did accounting and economics. I
Wow.
studied Japanese, and I thought that I was going to have some kind of commerce related role, potentially in trade, where I could work with Japan and New Zealand, and it would be very exciting. I started university in 2001, so it was right when the dot com bubble was kind of happening and bursting. And so I
So
enrolled
where
in a
you so
degree.
wait, you go rather quick. You say the bubble was coming and bursting. Did you still have the part of the boom of the growing, or did you just were there during the bursting?
So I think it was at the bursting, but because it's New Zealand, I was able to enroll in a degree called a Bachelor of E-commerce,
Mm-hmm.
and they had titled and structured this course around what they'd seen happening with internet and digital sales. And then, pretty much as I was starting that qualification, globally that bubble was bursting and things were shifting. But that turned out to be fine because in my first semester, I took 3 commerce papers and 1 computer science paper. And I had done a little bit of website design, mostly through things like GeoCities in the 90s.
Wow. Okay,
Uh,
brings back a lot of
yeah,
memories.
and I really enjoyed that, but I didn't consider computing as a career. Like I'd never felt that that was a path I could take. And I had a really excellent lecturer in my first computer science paper. His name was Ian Witten. He passed away recently. And he was phenomenal as a teacher, really engaging. And I realized that it was something I really enjoyed. And I decided to switch my entire degree. And I shifted from commerce into a Bachelor of Computing and Mathematical Science. So went like um, pure computing maths, and I really enjoyed it. Like it was a big change. But what would I be doing now otherwise? I'd probably be an accountant or a trade analyst or a English teacher in Japan, something that was leveraging those earlier interests in commerce and Japanese.
But it's yeah. You say accountancy, but you also say Japanese. These look already very separate things. How did that happen that you enrolled in both? Was there what is there? Yeah, it's really
So in
interesting.
New Zealand, we're not strongly a bilingual country. So there's obviously Maori culture. We can speak te reo, but I don't know much te reo. And in high school, when I was in high school, you had to choose a language when you started high school. And the options were French, Spanish, or Japanese.
Okay.
And I chose Japanese. And then it was something that I just enjoyed. Like I enjoyed the challenge. Japanese is quite a difficult language to learn because obviously the alphabet is completely different. The way you structure sentences is very different. The whole, it's an interesting challenge, or I felt that it was. And so it was something I pursued through my 5 years at high school. Um, and then because I enjoyed it, I think I saw opportunities for it to be useful. And at that time in New Zealand, Japan was one of our largest trading partners. Like they were an economy that we would have a lot to do with professionally. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. It's I find it interesting that well in Belgium we have officially three languages. So we have Dutch, we have French, and we have German. English is not even an official language, but a lot of us in high school learn French and English, or the Dutch people, and then the French learn Dutch and English. So not so much German because it's a very small part of our country. But these are, oh, except for English, these are the official languages of our country. And so Japanese looks, yeah, completely different kind of thing. So were there many people in your school learning Japanese? Was that very common for people?
Uh, so because you had to pick one, when we first started high school, yes, there were a lot of people learning Japanese. By the time I was finishing high school, no, my Japanese class was very small. But the same was true for French and Spanish by that point. And because, like I said at the beginning, Australia is 4 hours away. For us to go somewhere to speak French, Spanish, or Japanese, that's a long trip. You have to
Exactly.
travel a long way. So many people didn't see the relevance of continuing to pursue that study, which I find totally fair.
And is that then one of the main reasons that many people dropped out of the Japanese classes because they
Yeah, I
felt
think
like
a
we can't
mixture of
practice it?
you
Yeah.
can't use it, and also it gets increasingly difficult because you start by learning hiragana, and then you need to learn katakana, and then you start learning kanji, and like it gets increasingly tricky. And when it's also you can't see the applicability beyond when you're learning, the motivation to do that is pretty low.
Right. And if you now look back years later, are you still able to speak some Were you ever able to speak some Japanese with outside the class, I would say.
Yeah, I went to Japan with two friends,
Hmm.
and it was maybe 10 years ago. It was about 10 years since I'd been practicing Japanese, but my Japanese was very useful for getting us around as tourists. And I had compliments on my Japanese from some very polite Japanese people, which was very nice. So, yes, I have used it, but never outside of that setting as a
No.
tourist in Japan.
But still, it's very useful because yeah, I can imagine going to a country and not speaking any language that they're, especially if the signs are different. Like yeah, it's like I wouldn't even be able to recognize streets if they. I would almost need to have a copy and looking at it. And okay, these
Yeah.
days with Google Lens and whatever, we might use something and try. But yeah, I would not even dare. I would definitely need a guide or something to find my way around. So, but you were with some friends, and did they also speak Japanese, or were you the only one?
Uh, I spoke more than either of them, but I think both of them might have done the basics. Yeah.
So you were the expert there
Yeah.
in the traveling and got some yeah
I use
some
expert loosely.
yeah,
I
I'm
my
from
book,
the three of you,
yeah,
the one that know most. But if you get your way around and people compliment you, that's really nice. Especially if it's a lot of time in between,
yeah.
not using it. It's like wow, that's
So
worthwhile.
my book, the only other language my book has been published in is Japanese. I
Wow. And
had
did
some
you
people
did
reach
you?
out to translate it. I did not do it. I cannot read my book in Japanese. So just to be clear, like when you say expert, I'm not
Right.
really. I have the basics and a little bit more, but I'm certainly not fluent in Japanese. And I it, I thought it was quite funny that just by chance that ended up being the language that my book is available in,
Yeah, it's
given my history with the language. Yeah.
somehow it's the yeah the universe that takes care of you. That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
you spend some time, bit some effort to learn that language. Well, we'll give some energy back by having people that want to
Yeah,
translate it
maybe
for you.
so.
So it's a nice way of getting that back.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I had no idea it was translated, but if I would have found it, if you would not have told me now, I would have thought that at least you had proofread it yourself or done so. But what I'm hearing is like, no, that I would
No.
not be able to understand anything. So yeah,
They
it's
I took it on their word that it was a faithful translation, and I think it is because again people continue to purchase that copy,
right.
so I'm sure it's not um I'm sure it's a good
Right. That's
translation.
but that's a nice thing. And so you talked well to going back to the question you said okay I would have been in somewhere in an accountant or teaching. Was that at that moment like when you learned Japanese something that you thought about, oh, I might teach people some English in Japan? Was that I don't know, a goal at that moment, or how was
So
that?
there's quite a popular program that runs from New Zealand. It's called
Hmm.
JET, and it's a partnership between New Zealand and Japan where you can go to Japan for a year and teach English. And I thought that could be something I might do at one point. But I think when you finish high school, it's quite intimidating to choose what you want to do with the rest of your life. And so, what would have become of me? I think if I hadn't had that lecturer or been part of that course and been influenced towards computing, like there would have been some other external influence that would have pulled me in a direction, right? And it might have been, let's travel to Japan, or it might have been, let's study for a chartered accountancy, or it might have been something else. So those are the clearest alternative paths when you say, what else could you be doing? But I feel like at that age, I was very impressionable, and honestly, it probably could have gone anywhere. Of like, what's the thing that's going to spark my interest? Yeah,
Yeah, it's for me. It's one of the reasons why the first and the second question are in there, because it's yeah, we when we're young we have no idea what we want to do, and we literally could be, like you said, influenced in many different directions. And somehow I have children. My oldest is 22, and I remember a conversation a year or 2 years ago, like before studying, like, yeah, but this is the most important decision in my life, and everything depends on it. And in a way it's true, it is an important decision, but I also see that so many people move in different directions after that. Like, yeah,
yeah,
because at 20 you literally have no idea what will become of you and your life. Yeah, it's, for me it's interesting to ask these questions, to see some people have from a very young age already a plan and everything they want to go, and for some they reach that, and for some it goes completely in a different direction. And yeah, as parents, for example, I have no idea where my children will end up with, and I don't worry about it. It's just like, I just know that, okay, this is part of how life is. But
yeah,
it's interesting to have these kind of conversations, to look back at that, and to think like, okay, maybe I thought at 20 that I had an idea where to go, but now looking back, not really.
yeah,
It's a
for
little
sure.
bit. Um, and but like you say, um, it could come back in going as a tourist to a country and seeing like, hey, in the end I did learn some things. So, and
Yeah,
you talked also about, well, how difficult the language of Japanese is, and all these different kind of how would I say it, dialects in ways of this language. Is that something that helped you also in the rest of life for working? Because this is, you need to work really hard to even do the basics. Did that make you a better worker in a way, or did that influence you?
um, I don't know. I would maybe on reflection, it made it easier to start learning to code
Mm-hmm.
because I was familiar with symbols meaning things and needing to structure things in a certain way to be
Ah,
understood.
yes.
Like perhaps there's a link there. I did also, many years later, learn a little bit of Spanish for a holiday, and I was really surprised at how easy it was comparatively to pick up a little bit of Spanish. Um, so, yeah, I think I've always been a pretty conscientious learner, so I'm not sure that Japanese changed that necessarily, but perhaps it was the foundation of some of the skills you need to be able to code successfully.
Or it could be the opposite. Because you're already that kind of person, Japanese was a good choice, and that's
Yeah,
why you
true.
did it more or less until the end. Like you said, a lot of less people ended up being in that last year. So yeah, you persevered because, maybe because you had some yeah, it could go both ways, of course. That's interesting to look at that. Okay, let's move to that third question. What do you consider your biggest challenge, at least the biggest challenge you want to have openly on the internet, and why is that a good thing for you?
So, starting my own business has been an interesting challenge, and I think my biggest challenge with it right now is figuring out marketing and networking to build a consistent pipeline of work. And that's a good challenge because obviously I want to be helping people learn and grow as leaders, but it's a challenge. So there's a mixture of challenges in there. I work remotely. And so, looking for opportunities like this one, I was very grateful to get your invitation. I think podcasts are a way I can have my voice heard and have
Mm-hmm.
people know who I am and what I can offer. And then networking is a bit of a challenge again from New Zealand. I'm traveling over to Oradev in Malmo in November, which is my roughly annual attempt to connect with people in Europe.
Right.
And then it's about finding the opportunities locally and making the effort to leave my house and go and actually do those things. But I'm finding my clients are coming from overseas and domestically. And so trying to network and market from my home to reach all the people who might be interested is a challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think it's a challenge for a lot of people, but indeed, if you're far away, also different kind of time zones. So depending on when you want to reach out, you can schedule
Yes.
posts on social media and whatever, but you cannot really interact in the same time zone. So it makes things a little bit more difficult, I would say.
Yeah.
And what's the second part of that question? Why is that a good thing for you? What's so good about that?
Um, I guess what's good about it is I feel privileged to have the challenge because previously I was a full-time employee. You don't really have to consider where your work is coming from. The organization generates that for you. The networking element would come a little bit more organically, perhaps as part of a large organization. So I see it as a positive challenge because it's something new and different and related to a change in my work and life about how I'm approaching things. Like it's learning, it's hard. These are things I enjoy.
Right, right, and like you say, it's a different kind of challenge than if you're when you're self-employed or when you work for a company. Yeah, both have advantages and disadvantages, and I think well, I've done both parts, so I know the challenges from both sides, and it's not always easy for one party to understand the differences for the other. And were there things when because you took that plunge not so long ago, were there things that you thought about before that are actually easier than you thought, or vice versa?
Um, I was very anxious about the administrative aspects of setting up a business,
Mm-hmm.
and that hasn't been as daunting as I anticipated. I signed up for some software that supports that in New Zealand, but also the tax and business structure and, insurance and all the things you need to consider, they weren't as I had made them something very large in my mind, but when I sat down and worked through those things methodically, it didn't take as long as I thought.
Right. But that's and is that because your country is doing helping out in that sense? Because I know
I
that
think
yeah.
the software is helping out, but also I think I was using the setup as somewhat of an excuse to not go and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like in my head, I thought, oh, that's going to be really hard. So you should stay in this situation because this one is not going to be as good.
Mm-hmm.
The reality of that was a little different.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's sometimes well there is I think these days, well, in Belgium there is more information about it these days, and there are organizations that help out. But
Yeah.
yeah, probably a lot of employers don't want to help you spreading out. I do know a couple um, of employers that they actually were really happy when some of their employees left and found their own business, because they said, okay, that means that they learned something from this and I inspire them. So I know a couple of entrepreneurs that would really help out some of the employees to grow. But yeah, that's not everywhere that people are teaching or coaching or helping out for these kind of things. And what triggered you? What was the spark to do it? Because if you say, I thought it would be a lot of hassle, so somehow you got over that feeling?
So a couple of things. So we've already talked about the passing of my parents. So when my mum passed away about 4 years ago, um, I finished up my job at the time and took 5 months off.
Mm-hmm.
And in that period of time, I was considering what I wanted to do next in a very conscious way. And I decided I wanted to have an executive level role.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up going into my CTO, CPTO role. Um, the when I left that role, I again had that opportunity to really deliberately reflect
Mm-hmm.
and say, okay, now I've done the executive level role. Do I want to do that again, somewhere different or bigger? Do I want to do something else? And I thought, actually, now is the time to make that leap and do the thing that I think is hard and try it out and see if it can be successful or whether I'm going to need to U turn and go back to something in a bit.
Right.
And to be fair, that's still in kind of an assessment phase. Like I'm about 6 months in.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going well so far. It is going well so far. But will this be, from now on forever? Maybe not. I like to do, as you do, that conscious check in again of, is this the right thing? What else could I be doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Let's reflect and decide.
yeah, and in a way, yeah, it you can always go back in a way that well, there might then it might be hard to go back in different kind of things, but indeed you can every year or every whatever time you want to reevaluate, you can always yeah relook at that, and like you said, it's good that you have the feeling already like okay I've tried it, I'm doing it, I took the plunge,
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's really nice. Let's move to that next question. What drives you? Because yeah, in a lot of this, and probably it's related also to what you started out earlier on, but in a lot of what you talk here, I also saw that with your book and some other things, there is a lot of passion, there is a lot of drive. Do you have any idea where that triggered? Was there already a lot of that drive even before your parents went away? How was little Katrina? Was there also yeah so much energy and passion for these things?
I mean, I've always been a driven person.
Mm-hmm.
I think what drives me has shifted over time. And when I think about like right now, I think what drives me right now is helping other people to succeed. So when I'm reflecting on what I do at the moment, professionally, I'm doing coaching and training and helping individuals with their leadership career. I do a lot of volunteering with Girl Guiding in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
and I help 7 and 8-year-old girls to find their confidence and independence and learn new skills. That's something I really enjoy. Um, so the motivation for me at the moment is helping other people, grow and learn. And my whole family actually are teachers. So my parents were teachers, my sister is a teacher. I think it's something we collectively, it's part of how I was brought up, I think, to
Mm-hmm.
value these skills. If you asked me when I was at high school what was driving me, I like external validation. So I love like A plus.
Mm.
Yep. I'm very motivated by that as well. Like the success that is endorsed externally is motivating to me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's and So what I'm hearing that these things were already there when you were younger. Um, did that you talked about how the influence was of your parents or the death of your parents? Did that give you even a bigger drive to help out other people, or did that challenge? No, challenge is not the word. The channel the energy that you had.
I think the I think those things were already there because, like, I was volunteering with guiding early in my early 20s. I was teaching the graduate program already when the first thing happened. So I think maybe I don't think it altered what motivates or drives me. I think what it altered was the way I make choices about where to invest my time.
Hmm. That's yeah. Well, in a way, then for me, that's a little bit the kind of question I asked about the channeling. Like, okay, you it changes your decisions or might influence your decisions, but not so much the energy that you have. The
Yeah.
energy stays is similar. You just have a different decision on where you want to invest it in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's I seems very logical at these kind of things. And when you talk about helping out women or girls and teaching things, is that something that you had very young as well? Were you already inclined, I don't know, in scouting or something to help out? How was that? Is there some
Yeah,
history there?
I was involved in girl guiding as a child, and then when I was at high school, I was already a leader for the younger girls who were part of that organization. So yeah, that was present pretty early on for me. I really enjoyed doing that.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so then it's for you a very logical step to keep doing it, or was there a moment that you forgot or that you didn't do it, and now you consciously went back, or how is that?
Yeah, very much. So when I went to university, I stopped volunteering in that way. I moved cities and was studying, and life was different. Um, when I moved again for my first job, I met somebody who had a daughter who was involved in guiding, and she actually pulled me back into the organization. That was almost 15 years ago. So I've been doing it for the last 15 years again. And even when my work has been very busy and stressful, it's been kind of an outlet of something I enjoy. I find it quite relaxing to work with 20 children, which
Hmm.
other people think is crazy, but it's really enjoyable. The girls are there to have fun and to learn, and it's a real pleasure to be the person kind of teaching them things.
Yeah, I can imagine that. Yeah, it's different for all. Well, yeah, it's. Um, a part of me is happy that my children are 20s, that I don't have to deal with the younger ones anymore.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I can imagine that that at different moments of my life that would have been much more thing, and maybe later on. But right now, I'm like, okay, it's a different kind of challenge taking care
Yeah.
of older children. Let's put it like that. Oops, and there is my camera going. Like I said, it could happen. Let's use my
Was good
backup camera.
timing.
Um, Indeed, let's do that next question. What's the biggest achievement that you had so far? And what I've noticed when I ask this question with people is that for this is your moment to brag and to be really proud. Is that easy for you, to Katrina, to be proud and to brag?
Uh, so there are many skills that I have developed as a leader that don't come naturally to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I would put ability to be proud into this category. Um, Public
So
speaking
what
is
I'm
another one.
hearing,
I don't,
wait, because you go.
yeah,
So what I'm hearing is that you're now able to be proud, but it took you a lot of effort to learn this. Is that a correct
yeah.
statement?
And one of the reasons I've learned to be proud
Mm-hmm.
is partly because I think women and girls need role models who are going to talk about what they've done. And if you're not able to own and feel pride in your accomplishments, other people can't then use that as a source of inspiration for their own journey. So I think the way I've rationalized feeling proud is
Mm-hmm.
that when I do this and practice this, other people benefit. So, yes, I'm happy to talk about some things. I am really proud that I got an executive level CTO role. In New Zealand, it's very unusual for women to hold that role in an organization. I can think of one other
Mm-hmm.
that I know of at the moment. So, like, it's very rare. We're not a very large employment market. Um, and like I said, I had that period of reflection and decided it was a role that I wanted to pursue. Um, and securing that role and being successful in that role is something I feel a lot of pride in. And people have said to me, made them realize that that role was a possibility for them, which I
Right.
think is such a positive outcome from me having taken that
And
opportunity.
did you have yourself also, like you say, now you know one person, but did you have a woman role model before you took that role yourself?
No, no, not for that role specifically. So I had mentors who were part of the executive suite, but in
Mm-hmm.
different positions. Um, the the CTO role, even I had kind of perceived that role as being something that would be very difficult for me to secure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I think, well, I you said very specifically that it's important for women and for girls to have role models. I think it's also important for men, but men have them everywhere, and I think that's the hard the big difference. It's like, yeah, for men, they don't even realize that they need these kind of role models because they see them everywhere, and they consider it very logical and very normal. But they don't realize that there is a big privilege there, and like you say, you don't even see them. So for you, you have to actually almost convince yourself, like, hey, that could be an option for me.
Yeah.
And it's and you talked about coaching, or that having people working with you. Is that something that you done for a long time? How did that happen?
So yes is the short answer. I've been in leadership roles now for a long time, over a decade. Early in my career, I wasn't very good at it, but I think that's common for people who are promoted into leadership. Like, you're a
Mm-hmm.
very successful and capable individual contributor, you get promoted, but actually you're being put into a junior role in a completely different career track, and
Right.
often without a lot of support. So I had a pretty bumpy first couple of years in leadership, I felt. It was unusual to me to feel like I didn't know what I was doing, because I am accustomed to being a very capable person. And
Ah,
so leadership was a challenge, and that has been useful to me ongoing because I really focused on deliberate learning of a bunch of skills around my own leadership and also around how to lead others and how to coach others. And that learning has been really valuable to me through the rest of my um, career.
right. Yeah, I can imagine if you what I'm also hearing is that you were used to being successful, and so in a way I'm hearing this was the first time that it wasn't easy to be successful. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I think it's somewhat fair. Like at university, I certainly found parts of my university degree a challenge. Like
Mhm.
I was doing induction proofs in calculus that I didn't enjoy those at all. Like there were aspects of the academic syllabus that I found difficult, but becoming a leader was the first time that the path to success wasn't purely through syllabus and independent learning. Like you had to build emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills and relationships, and it's a interconnected thing with fairly
Mhm.
nebulous requirements, and what success looks like in the role is different to different people. And for you to be seen as successful by all those perspectives, you have to be achieving a variety of things like that. It's the complexity of what success
Mhm.
is that I think made that more of a challenge for me, because it was both figuring out where the bar was and then trying to meet that or exceed it.
Mm. Yeah, I can definitely see yeah, again, if you're into that new role, and if you yeah having that, and did you then because this part started out at the moment that I asked about coaching, is that then that moment that you realized like, okay, I need other people to help me out, or was that yeah what triggered that? Was there other people that told you like, Katrina, maybe there is someone who can help you, or were the people that
So,
volunteered
do
to
you
help you? How
mean
did it work?
people
I
who
don't know.
coached me?
Yeah, people
So,
that coached you.
um, so there's a mixture of things here.
Hmm.
One I'll talk about later because it's part of the book
Yeah.
I want to recommend. Um, but the other, there was a mentoring program running in my city, not a tech mentoring program. It was for women in leadership.
Okay.
And I was assigned a mentor who was a past member of our parliament, and she was
Wow.
a CEO of our shipping federation. So,
Okay.
no context of tech at all.
Hmm.
And
And did that help you that she was from a
yes,
completely different? Yeah.
very much. And that's when you say, how did coaching come? I think she taught me things she knew, but more so, she taught me that there's lots of value in someone asking you the right questions and
Hmm.
prompting you to find your own path. So I'd say twofold, right? Like I saw the benefits of being coached, and I also understood the strategies for coaching from a
Hmm.
position of relative ignorance. Like, and both facets were really impactful in how I then approached some of my own leadership challenges.
Hmm. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, that helping for both sides,
Yeah.
and indeed, like you say, having someone from a completely different background, I can definitely see that that gives a lot of different kind of energies and different kind of things. So
Yeah.
that yeah, it's people have to be open for it and have to that it's not something people very regularly consider, but then when that happens in situations, in most cases I see indeed that it really helps, that it's really helpful. So that's indeed a very nice way of looking at that. So yeah, it's very nice to hear your story, and becoming basically a role model for other women. That's really is yeah, a big achievement, I would say. So thank you for sharing that. Let's move to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
So I do.
Mm-hmm.
I use Trello, which is a visual board kind of tool
Mm-hmm.
to manage everything in my life. I have a personal Trello. So my personal agility tip would be about visualizing work, and I use work loosely. Like
Mm-hmm.
if you want to understand where your time is being invested and be prioritizing, you know, where to spend your time in life, visualizing your work is a good way to do that. So my personal agility tip would be take those practices around making things visible so that you can make decisions with the information and applying it everywhere.
And when you say visual, well, Trello is I use Trello also a lot, so I'm a big fan as well. But Trello for me it feels more like, yeah, it's a digital replacement of my post-its that are never with me when I need them, when I'm not in the office or when I'm, yeah, so at the different places. So having a Trello board, it's really interesting, but it gives me less quantitative data in the sense that, okay, how many things or how long did it take for stories? Maybe that's
It's
possible
true.
with Trello. I've never done that. But so when you talk about visualizing and data, could you say some more on how do you use that?
Yeah, sure. So this might be unusual. I like to tag all my cards with a color based
Mm-hmm.
on the type of investment. And again, this is a tip I picked up from the book I'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I have a category for girl guiding, I have a category for family and friends, I have a category for work related stuff happening out of hours. So if I'm going to like a meetup or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
um, etc. And then
And so these things also end up all in your Trello board.
so they're all, yes, everything is in
Mm.
there and it's color coded. So when I open it, I can see, oh, there's a lot of purple. I'm doing a lot
Ah.
of girl guiding stuff coming up. Is that what I should be doing? Am I happy about doing that? Do I need to balance things out here? How can I do that? So I think the it's useful to me to plan and to keep track. But more broadly, it's useful to me to understand trends and patterns in my upcoming commitments and to be constantly doing that prioritization, reflection kind of loop of, is this still where I want to be spending my time?
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of something I've learned from the book, the Seven Habits of Effective People, of highly effective people of Covey, where he also said something like, okay, you, and yeah, I know, I don't know if it's from a book or from the training because I followed some training about it, but he also talks about, okay, look for your different primary roles in your life, so multiple roles, and then put your agenda and give them indeed also colors for the different kind of roles, and then look at your agenda at the end of the week and say, okay, did I spend as much time as a father or as a partner or as whatever a
Yes.
business owner? And that's really interesting
Yep.
because, yeah, the first moments I did it, it was really horrible because you look at things that you invest so much time that you say that's not worth it, or the opposite, like, oh really, I
Yep.
thought I wanted to spend so much time in learning whatever, and I don't do that agenda
Yep.
wise. And so yeah, it's really wonderful. And so you do that at Trello level. I never thought about. Well, I'm using colors also in Trello, but not at that kind of level. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting to look back at that. So that's a really great tip. I love that. Yeah,
Thanks.
I've done some personal training and indeed then also used or combined some of these things from Coffee. But in Trello, I've never done it myself. So time to go back and re-look at my Trello boards again and see
Yeah.
how I could adapt some of that stuff. And you said you use it for a lot. Could you give some of the strange examples? Because I really love it when people apply some of these things in a broader context. Is there something that is not too embarrassing that you can still share, or that you don't care
Uh,
if it's embarrassing?
so I do use it a lot. I mean, so to give you a sense, in the next kind of 2 months, there's about 20 things on here. So it's
Mhm.
not, it's at more of an epic level than a task level. It's sort of capturing theme and commitments. Um, I don't think there's anything really out there in there. It's just a collection of, I'm collecting for the food bank for Girl Guiding, and we're doing that on these days. Or I have a client in the evening that I don't normally have a client on, so I've captured it there so that I know that that's where I'm committing time. I'm running a big camp for in October, and there's where that time is going. Things like that.
Hmm. Yeah, okay. I can definitely see that yeah, can help in putting things. I can share one that it's somehow there is a we have a Trello board for the family that mostly I'm using, but there is one column that is for money basically that my children are spending that I have to pay them back. And so before it used to be okay, you send it in a WhatsApp group, but then you have to keep track of it. It's now okay, you put it into that column, you put the money, you put the name, okay, the child who puts it in there, and okay, some explanation why you need it. And so it's much easier for me now to keep track of okay, who did I already pay back. Of
Yeah,
course, the
nice.
idea is that the column should be zero, but I have to admit we're halfway in August, and yeah, there is already a lot of things that my children spent this holiday because not all of them are at home,
Yeah,
and so yeah, it's good to make sure that they get their money back if things are spent. The disadvantage is that they might put in a lot of things that they spent that they think or they hope we pay back, that we might have to discuss if it's from
yeah.
their
You need to
from their pocket
audit
money.
their requests.
Exactly, something
Yeah,
like that. I don't want to feel as an auditor, but well, they do get pocket money, so the intention is that they don't get everything paid back. But yeah, like sometimes it's just stupid. Well, just before we went on holiday, it was like okay, we would, I don't know what it was. We still needed something from the shop, and we just asked one of the children to get it while we were doing other stuff. And then it's like okay, you just pay it there and put it there, so that makes
yeah,
things a lot more easier accounting wise, and it makes also sure that we're paying it back, because otherwise there might be a risk that they pay it where actually we should have do it. So that's one way how we use Trello in a way. It's an interesting thing because basically I abuse that column in a board that's for totally different things, but that column is really for okay, that's the when you need to get money back from
yeah,
us. And so I trigger them in a way to understand Trello a bit. And sometimes they put in other things because there's a column about things that we're considering buying, and so they have discovered that as well, to put in other stuff. So that's it's gradually
yeah.
they discover some of that these kind of tools. So yeah, interesting things. Let's move to remote, and because you said you're so far away of a lot of things, I do wonder. Um, is that something you did for a long time already, working remote, or yeah?
So I have remote worked s- in Wellington in New Zealand in late 2016. There was a very large earthquake, and
Mm.
the building that I worked in was shut. The roofing panels all fell down. Luckily,
Wow.
the earthquake happened on a Sunday, but basically on the Monday, we were told you can't come to the office. And then I believe during that week, we were assigned a time to go in and meet with people wearing hard hats, and they went and found our equipment, retrieved it from our desks for us,
Wow.
and we were then asked to set up a home office. So um,
So wait, because that meant that you didn't have at that time, you didn't have laptops or anything. So
so
basically,
we did but our laptops were in the office, so we didn't have.
right.
I worked for a bank at the time, and there wasn't a culture of
Of
taking your
taking it
device
home.
out. We had a fixed workspace, and people had their desks with their things. Um,
So the
so
laptops were more used for going to meetings and things like
meetings,
that,
correct? Yes,
and but you
yeah,
left it at the office.
yeah. Um, so my whole organization, of which there were a couple of thousand people, we ended up working remotely for about 6 months
Mhm.
while the commercial property team found another location and fitted out with desks and got set up for us to move all those people somewhere else. That was an experience I did not enjoy at all. The organization wasn't set up to support remote work. It had obviously happened very unexpectedly. There were no communication tools to support that appropriately. It was a pretty bumpy ride.
Mhm.
Um, COVID 2020, a very similar thing happened, but I was working in a different organization, and that organization was global and already had some of the tools and practices around asynchronous decision making and communication. And so that was a very seamless, you can't come to the office on Monday. New Zealand will be in lockdown. We don't know how long that will happen for. You all need to work from home. And that period of time, which was a similar, I think it was about 6 months, was very different to my first experience because the company was much better equipped to run in a remote way. And I found that I really enjoyed not having to commute and having the focus space. Like I could choose to be focused and quiet and really productive, or to connect into meetings or water cooler chats or Slack. And like I really enjoyed working in that way. Um, so much so that after COVID, when I was seeking my exec role, I ended up taking a remote first role, which was something I wouldn't have considered 5 years prior. But having had that really positive experience and built some of the skill set around how to lead a team remotely was something that I like I took on and really enjoyed doing.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, I'm still thinking about the two different experiences you had, both companies, and I've seen similar kind of situations, and I've heard a lot of friends the exact same thing. Well, happened almost everywhere around the world with COVID. Like companies completely not ready, or thinking they were ready and then not being ready. I had a conversation in a company. So on Monday we were still discussing like, yeah, okay, COVID, what will happen? What could we do? Should we have some more people working from home? And I remember my boss saying, this is not an option in our company. This is totally not acceptable. Nobody can do it. At best, some managers can do, and so basically it was a trust issue. And on Thursday, I think was it Wednesday or Thursday? Yeah, Thursday evening, the Belgian government decided like work from home. So basically, this company had no option. And on Friday morning, I went in and I helped distributing screens and whatever
Yeah.
and for my manager. Everything had clicked in that Thursday evening. Like it wasn't possible on Monday. On Thursday, it was like it's mandatory. Poof, and
Yeah.
yeah, and it worked for that because we already had indeed some of these tools. It wasn't perfect, but we were, well, global is maybe exaggerated, but we had offices in Belgium, we had offices in France, we had offices in a couple of others, and we did have some tools to work together. And so we did have some troubles because the network was not set up for good
Yeah, right.
video. So basically, everybody still had to do VPN into the office, and all the videos went over that. And the VPN, yeah, it just exploded in the first couple of weeks. They really had to work hard to reroute everything for video. But once that was set up, everything worked really really well.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a lot of people adapted in that place, but I heard so many other companies where it was actually yeah a very hard issue for things. And so you had both of these, and then when you had that executive role, you said like, okay, I noticed that this is actually working for me. If it's good set up, let's try to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Were there hard parts? Because working remote when you already know people is one thing, but coming into an office completely remote is a whole different kind of ball game. I think were there extra challenges for you for that, or how was that?
So I think there were different challenges, but I'm not sure. So I've reflected on this a bit. I am categorized as an older millennial, and I very much grew up like digital native. So I
Mhm.
remember at high school we used ICQ, which was an old like chat kind of tool. Um,
I still remember the sound of the yeah.
yeah,
I won't be able to make
yeah.
but yeah.
So this is a connecting with people electronically is something very normal
Mhm.
to me and something that I think you can do successfully and genuinely.
Mhm.
Um, the my experience was that for people my age and younger, building relationships remote first was equally difficult to building a
Mhm.
relationship with someone face to face.
Right.
What I found with people who are older is that they really value an index towards face to face, and that I would need to travel or spend time with them, often socially as well, to connect and build rapport and, get to know that person. Like, I believe I see a kind of generational difference in how people value relationships built remote versus relationships built face to face, where um, for the people, like obviously this is a broad generalization, but for the people younger, I felt I was building the relationship online and then kind of validating validating it when I met them. Like, oh hey, it's nice to put a face to the name, but we've already established that rapport. For the older people, I felt like they were reserving judgment a little bit. And when you
Mm.
meet them is when they're saying like, okay, now tell me about yourself because now I can validate this. Like it's starting again is unfair, but you sort of were there wasn't a lot of trust put in the remote interaction until
Right.
they'd been able to suss out, like in a face to face context, who you are and how you operate.
Because
Yeah.
that's the world that they grew up in, and
Yeah,
that's
and I do think that's the difference, right? Like
mhm.
the I think it's normal for people to gravitate towards them, like the patterns that they know, right? Like that's the way you validate whether you can trust someone or how diligent they are or how, smart their decision making is. I can't assess that remotely. I need to be able to sit across from them in an office or at a restaurant and really kind of have that
Mm-hmm.
interaction and figure this out. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, like you said, it really depends on ages and some things. I know that, well, when I grew up, yeah, first of all, we didn't have cell phones, so there was a lot more talking on phones and physically meeting. But yeah, very quickly, I had a cell phone, and okay, I'm used to sending text messages, and so in that sense, indeed, ICQ and a couple of others, MSN Messenger and what have you not, were things that I used a lot. A lot less used to video. I see my daughter, 17-year-old, or I don't know when that started, but sending a lot of short video messages. So in the morning, she just sends 10-second video message and gets a 10-second video message back. And so they communicate that way. And for them, it's throw away the way I throw away a chat message and WhatsApp or an SMS message, where video and photo for me are much more like, oh, I don't want to lose it, because I grew up with pictures that literally you had, yeah, what was it, 24 pictures on the camera, and you
Yeah.
took very care what you took, and you don't want to throw it away. And this is a completely different experience with that video. I didn't even, well, no, there was a friend of my parents who had a video camera, and I do remember that once going there to record something for school or whatever, so that that was a very special occasion. So yeah, I don't have that video anymore because
Yeah.
of practical stuff, but otherwise that would have been, yeah,
I
that's
think
definitely, yeah.
that's a really good insight. Like I had, there were robust conversations in our executive about the best way to connect people, and there was a quarterly face to face. Everybody was flown to one location, and there was some activity like bowling or golf or something, and everybody would connect that way. And then um, I started recording 1 minute updates about what was happening in product and engineering. And I felt that, like you were just talking about, right? Like the ways that people connect and find information and the mediums they value, like, are so different that some of the strategies that used to work universally now aren't serving your entire workforce. And then you have to think about, like, okay, how can we leverage these other things that are actually going to have more impact? Like, economically, you're much better off recording a 1 minute casual video to talk to your staff than to fly everyone into a town hall and serve them some finger food and give them the same message, right? So, and I'm not saying one or the other is better. I think you need both, and in different contexts and for different things. So it's an interesting, yeah, it's interesting just the pace of that shift and how different types of messaging resonate with different people. Like, yeah, and I think there's also benefit to being one of the people in the middle, because when I talk to people in their early 20s, sometimes they don't have the perspective of the people in their 50s and 60s, and vice versa. And so
Right.
I think the people who can appreciate, like when I was in primary school, we still had a landline, and there's a generation of people who haven't had a corded phone in their house, right? So it's an interesting place to be, that kind of middle ground, to be able to appreciate the perspectives from both ends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember. So my children. So when my children grew up, well, maybe when they were very young, we had, well, we definitely had a landline, but we they were all remote, in a way. They were wireless wireless phones, or most of the time. I did have one with a cord, so that was attached, but that was in my office and hardly used because it was just.
Yeah.
what is it, the backup phone for when we were out of batteries or something like that. But we did have the famous famous phone from Fisher Price with the red handle. I don't
Yeah,
know if you know
yeah,
that one.
I do.
And
Yes.
I do remember a conversation with my oldest son and the second one, and because the second was asking like, why is there a cable between the horn and the phone? And my son said, the oldest one said very cleverly, he said like, yeah, you know that we always lose the phone and dad doesn't know where the phone is. So this is to avoid that we would lose it. It's just, so he had a very logical explanation that was totally wrong. But for him, it
Yeah,
felt like, yeah, there was a phone is just wireless. And so why would there be a connection that's just for not losing it? And it
yeah,
was so wonderful to see. And did this, I don't know when, what was he, 3 4 year old, I don't know how old he was, but just having an explanation to his brother about how that is completely wrong, completely irrelevant, but from his point of view of the world, that was completely correct, of course.
yeah,
And I just remember listening to that and like deciding like, should I say something or not? Like, I know I'll just listen into this conversation, because it's indeed, like you say, it's a world that, although they had a landline, so they did have that experience, for them it was still a wireless phone.
yeah,
And for my daughter, a couple of years later, it was very difficult to understand. Sometimes when I was on the phone and we needed to go, we had everybody had to wait until that phone conversation was over, and sometimes we just went into the car and I just kept calling, and they didn't know the difference, because one was my cell phone and the other one was the wireless telephone, which
yeah,
was the
yeah,
landline. And so she couldn't understand that difference. For her, it was like, it's a telephone, you have it in your hand, we walk and you go. And
yeah,
yeah, that was for them, that looked the same, behaved the same, and she literally couldn't understand why we had to wait.
yeah,
So it was really interesting to see that for them, it's, yeah, the world is completely connected all the time. And like you say, some people don't even, yeah, they can't imagine, my children can't imagine that not everybody, we had just one phone at home. So if
yeah,
I was on the phone, we literally had no internet, because that was with
yeah,
modems and everything. So yeah, you had to choose between calling, faxing, using a computer online, and things like that. That's, for them, it's like that they don't understand. So it's interesting to be indeed somewhere in the middle and understanding a little bit of all sides. I can definitely see that. Yeah, and it's it's very interesting to see in how quickly the world is changing in a
hmm,
very small amount of times, I would say. So that's very interesting perspective talking about remote work. So thank you for bringing a lot of inspiration to these. So let's move to that next question. What is a book that you have read that you want to talk about? And you
yeah. So
already hinted a little bit about what
I
some.
went back in time. This used to be pink. It's now, you can see it's kind of turned
Wow.
bluey green. It's
So
very
it should look
faded.
like this, right?
Yeah, it
This is
should
the
look
it
like
should,
that.
right, and so it's already
So
completely different.
yeah, so it's Lara Hogan, Resilient Management.
Hmm.
I was actually surprised that this was published in 2019. I must
Wow.
have read her blogs earlier than that, because I
Mm.
remember this being an influence for me a
Okay.
couple of years prior to 2019, I think. The biggest things from this book for me were Manager Voltron, which we sort of started talking about earlier. She has this idea of building a support network of leaders and being
Hmm.
able to pull on the experience of different people for different reasons to help shape your own journey. Um, and again, we've touched on it. She also talks about the color coding your calendar based on the type of event to understand where you're investing your time. And both of those tips were things that I implemented with great impact. And I think just in general, like, this is not a long book. I
Hmm.
struggle to engage in very long professional reading. I like that this one is short, it's practical, there's a ton of tips in there, and I still regularly recommend this to people, and then find there's lots
Mm.
that comes back in conversations with people that I am coaching or mentoring. Everyone kind of takes different tips and advice from this
Mhm.
and implements it with success in their own role.
Yeah, I think it's and it's yeah, it's a book that's been that if I look at it, like you say, it's already quite old in a way. So that's what I like about these kind of books, that even if they're more than 5 years old, they're still relevant because okay, um, yeah, working with people and management in a way, it does evolve, but at the same time it doesn't. I mean, yeah, so of course we learn new things as a whole, but a lot of good practices, yeah, stay around, I would say.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. And yeah, typically one of the questions I want to ask is what's examples on how you use it, but we already talked about that. So and we've already been talking a lot of these things, so let's immediately move to the next topic. I'm already
Cool.
really happy with what you shared about that book. So this comes for me actually as one of the most interesting questions for me. Is like, okay, we talked in so many different directions, so many different things. What's a question that I should also ask you, and what's the answer? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you still want to talk about?
So I was thinking about the general tone of your other questions,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like you ask fairly deep questions, like you're digging for insights about people and how they operate. And
Mm-hmm.
so the question I thought of, given the current state of the world, was how do you stay hopeful?
Mm.
Because I think for a lot of people, and maybe this is unique in New Zealand, but I don't think so. For a lot of people, what's happening, like geopolitically, is unsettling. What's happening economically, like in New Zealand, we're in a pretty deep recession. There's a lot of unemployment in our country, and that's creating a lot of stress for different people and families. The rise of AI and how people see that, whether as
Mm-hmm.
an opportunity or a threat. And I think there's a lot going on, and that asking people where they continue to find hope is a thing you should ask.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
yeah, I really like that because indeed it's yeah at the same time it's scary to ask about the world because like you say there's so much things going on, and every time you think like, oh God, this is, and then the next day or the 2 days later things are getting even worse, like yeah, so
yeah,
that's
it moves very fast. So
mm-hmm.
I had an answer for this. I
Mm-hmm.
have talked about this a little bit already, but one of the things I've decided to do is to focus on the positive impact that I can have
Mm-hmm.
on my part of the world and the individuals that I work with. So I see, both professionally, the people who I work with and coach and train, and personally, when I volunteer with Girl Guiding or other things, the impact of my actions, where people are really motivated to try something new or they have learnt a new skill, you know, you see that happiness, and it gives me hope that I can continue to have kind of that positive impact on the world. And it's sort of an answer of like, how do you ignore all of this noise and find joy and gratitude in what you can control? But I think, yeah, I went to a tech conference in New Zealand a few months ago, and there was a lot of speakers talking about fear and uncertainty and how to live in this kind of environment. And my reflection was that while I want to be aware of those things, I want to try and limit the influence of those things on me, and to be mindful about where I have control and find the positivity and joy in those things.
Hmm. Yeah, I recognize that completely in the way that well, you talked already about the influence you have and the helping of people, and maybe it's yeah, I'm naive in that sense that yeah, looking at things, but for me there's yeah, what else is there to do? I mean, we could be becoming very sarcastic or very desperate and being very depressed about the world. And of course, I know that a lot of things are going bad, and I hope to influence some parts of it where I can with the things I can. But I also don't want to worry too much about yeah, about a lot of things where I totally have no influence. I will
Yeah.
hopefully grow my influence a bit, and indeed, like you say, look a little bit at what are options to do. But yeah, it's focusing too much.
It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, it's if you have so look so large at things that are completely out of our control, and indeed, um, I do want to have an influence. I do want to. Yeah, I've worked with people in Ukraine on purpose. I knew that when one of the options of a company to work with, I knew that there were people in Ukraine, and I said, okay, I definitely want to work there because I want to see how I can help these people in their work, because
Yeah.
I knew, yeah, after a year or 2 years, I don't know exactly when I started there, but that's yeah, it's where I want to hope to bring my influence into,
Yeah.
and
I
yeah,
think that's key, right? Like, I'm not suggesting ignorance. Like, I think
mhm,
people need to remain connected and aware about what's happening, and, like you say, identify discrete opportunities to get involved and influence opinion and conversation where you can. But I also think recognizing that you can't solve all of that, and for your own mental health, building kind of a positive space where you can reduce your anxiety and feel a sense of hope and pride and gratitude for what you can achieve in the world. Like, that's something important, and that I think people should remember.
yeah, I recognize that, and indeed, like you say, it's looking for the opportunity. I didn't find the right words, but that's for me. It is looking for opportunities where okay, what can you do, and
Yeah.
not get too desperate in it, and sometimes it's just talking to people and messaging, and making sure that the voice is heard when
Hmm.
people are misbehaving around us in companies, and say like, oh, what did you say, could you repeat it, could you explain some of these things, and sometimes it's yeah, I don't know, spending money on yeah, on the kind of companies that I think behave better than others.
Yeah.
That's it's not always easy because yeah, sometimes we spend money and then later on it turns out that that company behaves or supports other values than we have, but it's yeah, it's looking a little bit for these kind of things. And um, is that something that is just recently in the last couple of years that you thought about? Is it something that you consciously been doing for a long time? How should I see that?
To be honest, for quite a while, I remember a conversation with my husband before the 2016 US presidential election,
Mm-hmm.
um, the one that Trump was first a candidate for. And pretty much since then, uh, for various reasons, there's been things happening. I think prior to that, I was less aware of what was happening internationally. Over the last decade, I've certainly been more aware. I think the media has been more, there's been more content, right, about what's been happening around the world. I think you're, I think it's difficult to totally avoid what's going on, and I think that's a good thing. But yeah, these are, I'd say yes, the last decade is, this has been a strategy for me.
I like that. It's and it helps to be aware. I had the States is a very nice example of where things are going crazy, and every time we think like this is bad, like and yeah, that first election was already bad. What happened, but now in less than the first month alone was ridiculously compared to the 4 years before.
Yeah.
In that sense, he and his environment were much better prepared. Unfortunately, in ways that I don't like, but okay, that's tells a lot about the world. And yeah, I think it is important to be aware about that. For me, it also means at that moment I decided I won't go to the States for 4 years. And yeah, at this moment it's even, yeah, there is a big risk if people are a little bit, yeah, more conscious and talking out loud about some of the things that are happening there, then you have a big risk even going there. So
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
also not nice. Okay, that is a wonderful answer to this question. I really like your question and your answer to that, because it's indeed in the same kind of direction as you said, as some of my questions, and it goes much deeper because it has an impact not just on you but on the full world and how you look at that. So that is a very nice inspiration, I think. I want to
Thanks.
move to that already last question. Who do you think I should ask next?
So Rachel Collingridge is
And
a,
if I'm correct, I didn't check the picture with you before, but this should
yes,
be
hey, well
her.
done. That's Rachel.
So
Rachel is the head of engineering at Totara, which is a
mhm.
learning software that's developed out of New Zealand. As you would have seen on the slide, she's also a musician, a very accomplished musician.
Yeah,
She
just for
recently
people didn't see it, that's indeed.
she recently did a keynote at a conference in New Zealand where she had her saxophone quartet um, on stage with her. She would play a piece of
Wow.
music and then talk about the piece of content that was associated with that music. And it was a very engaging talk. Like they
Wow.
played, I think they played 4 different short kind of pieces of music through her talk. So it's very impressive.
Yeah,
Um,
it's mind blowing because I've seen at 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 a certain agile conference. I was in the evening. There was a quartet also doing some music, and then later there was somebody explaining some of the things. But that was not, as far as I remember, that was not a musician that explained the things. And this is here basically almost the opposite. The keynote speaker that brings her own music into it, and
yeah, it
yeah,
was really
that's
cool.
lovely.
So I was lucky to work with her in a past employer.
Yeah.
Um, Rachel is very smart. She's got good insights. I think she'd be a good person to ask these questions to and get a different perspective from another person who has a lot of opinions to share. Yeah.
And who's, yeah, like again, I had already a couple of people who do play or played music at some part in their life, but this is, yeah, I really love when people integrate multiple things together.
Yeah.
The fusion of things typically brings in a whole different kind of layer. And so that definitely, I like, this is why I liked and added the picture of her playing music, but I didn't know that she would also do this at the conference.
Yeah, I think the photo you have is from the event. you can see the presentation screen in the background.
Right. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was from our LinkedIn, so I had no idea where
Yeah,
it
yeah.
came from. But that's yeah, wonderful ID. So I already look forward to talking to her. Yeah, Katrina, it's been a wonderful time that we spent here together. If people want to connect with you, what would be a good way to reach out to you?
So LinkedIn is the best way to connect and follow.
This
I do
should
have
be
a
the LinkedIn, if I'm correct.
Yes, it is. I do now have a website,
Hmm?
which I'm not sure I had set up when you originally invited me. So it's
I
just,
didn't have it, so
yeah, it's just
I'll add it to the.
katrinaclokie.com. Um, that's where my professional services are listed, and if you're interested in a course or coaching, but LinkedIn is the place where, if
Super.
you'd like to have a conversation, that's the easiest way. And my email is available on both those places too. Yeah.
So that's I'll add definitely the link
Yeah,
to the show
great.
notes from the
Yeah.
website. I already wrote it down and double check to make sure that it's the right link. I'm not going
Yeah.
to add it now on screen because it's a different computer, but yeah, I
Cool.
I really want to thank you for your time because it's yeah. I always love it when I can connect to people in different parts of the world, and now it was the future, and that's even much nicer.
Yeah.
By now, it's literally 1 minute after midnight when I'm saying this, so we're already in the same day, but you're still ahead of me. So yeah, it's wonderful. But it was this kind of conversation is indeed the kind of things that I'm hoping for. We
Yeah,
had to,
great.
for multiple reasons, reschedule a couple of times, or had to reschedule. But I'm so happy that we did find the time to do this. I was looking forward a lot to this one, and it was everything that I was hoping for
Oh, thank
with
you.
this.
I
With
really
this.
appreciate the invitation. It's great to be able to, like I said, connect with people outside of New Zealand and just hear about. It's interesting to hear what you're going to be asked, as well as
Mhm.
to then have the conversation about the questions. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's always a little bit doubt how much do I want to add from myself into the conversation. But the goal is indeed the conversation, not just a dry asking
Yeah.
questions, and
Yeah.
especially when with someone like you, where you go so deep into the answers because yeah, right from the very first question, you talked with very deep subjects, and like you say, things that are not always easy to discuss, and a couple of years ago that would be a lot harder, but then it's nice to see, okay, you've evolved, and now it's a thing that is, yeah, it's possible to talk about, and for me that brings so much depth, and I'm always in this, I really felt like right from the start, like very humble to say, okay, I'm allowed to go and listen to that story, and be part of that challenge that was there. And for me, that set the tone right for such a wonderful conversation.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
the time flew for me. It's only
Yeah.
because I watched the time that I knew that, okay, we've been talking for such a long time. So really
Yeah.
wonderful. So I
Great.
would say in that sense, see you in well, and I hope to see the future like you brought it up. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks very much. Have a good sleep, I guess.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
Yes.
Okay, do.
All
Bye.
right. Thank you.
Thank you
Bye.
for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.